And we're back. It is COMP2068, the winter 2016 semester here at Georgian, and it's week 9, part 1 of our broadcast. And what I want to start talking about today is how to send mail through your contact form. So you have your contact form, and you want to make it active, and you don't want to use PHP. That's just like dumb. How do I use PHP with Node, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? Or using some kind of like dual server thing, whatever, because you don't know how to make it work. So Sendgrid is a way to do that with Azure, and it's setting up a little email service in order for us to do this. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then as a little lab today, I'm going to get you to do it, like sign up and all that stuff. But let's see. I'm a little bit challenged today. You know, I gotta pull the sick card. I'm sick, right? So I can pull the sick card and say I don't know everything today. Here's what I don't know. I don't know if your DreamSpark account will allow you to set up a Sendgrid account. That's what I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's there because it's pretty simple, but you know what? I can't guarantee it. So I'm going to show it to you because it's important for you to know how to send mail and receive, you know, stuff like that with the contact form with Node. Otherwise, you have an incomplete kind of, you know, application. Let's do that here. So we're going to go to portal.azure.com, and let's see if I can log in with the right credentials this time around. How about them apples? Okay, doesn't like my credentials somehow. There we go. All right, so what it's going to look like when you finally sign up to it is something that looks like this. Right, here's your Azure, what it looks like for a Sendgrid. If I click on this thing, it's basically a service that we're going to set up with Azure. It's another little service we can send up, right? So let's take a look and see how this works. If I was to follow the instructions here, it says I want to go to new, but now normally what we have is compute and then marketplace. There's marketplace, right? I want to pull up the one that works. This is a little bit of an older article, and they keep on adjusting how Azure looks. So let's take a look at some of this. So I want to say new, and typically we'd go into something like a web and mobile. But I want you to start typing Sendgrid, right? Email delivery. If you go click on Sendgrid email delivery, you should see what it looks like, right? And do you guys have this as an option? Thank God. So that's number one. So we've kind of gone across away from that. If you don't have that, it's not available for you. It tells you can't do it on your account or something. That would be very bad. So how do I find this thing if I wasn't looking through here? So it's not virtual machines, obviously. It's not web and mobile, because if I go web and mobile, and you can see how things have changed already. Let's go back. So go new, web and mobile, and if I scroll all the way down, I don't see a Sendgrid here. Data and storage, it's not there. That's MongoLab and other things like that we've done before. And if I go down to developer services and look all the way to the bottom, that's what I want to see. So I go to new, developer services, Sendgrid email delivery. Okay? Can you please go there? Do you guys see that as an option?
I see it, but it's great.
Yeah, nobody let's just get more of that.
This is what I was afraid of. See what I'm saying? Well, there's another way around this, and here's how we can do this thing. I'm not going to say, you know, I'm kind of a diehard when it comes to this stuff, right? You know how it is, right? So I'm going to go to DreamSpark, right? And I'm pretty sure you can get Sendgrid through DreamSpark. They keep on adding new things here on DreamSpark. And I'm thinking that if you go to, I think it's GitHub for Education, they might have your student pack inside your student pack. Let's see if they have that here. I'm pretty sure they have Sendgrid, yeah.
You can get Sendgrid, you can just email Sendgrid.
But this is what I want you to do. I want you to go, if you don't have it, if you guys have you downloaded your student pack? Okay, so please download and install your student pack for under DreamSpark. And then that would be under Student Developer Pack. If you get your Student Developer Pack, you get things like the following. You get a some additional things here, like, for example, $50 in platform credit for new users at DigitalOcean, right? Which is kind of cool. you get 7 or 5 private repos at GitHub, right? So that's kind of cool, right? You get a free domain from Namecheap, right, for a year, and 1 free SSL certificate for a year from Namecheap. That's another thing you get, right? So you can grab that as well. And then, of course, you get access to Sendgrid. Now, you get 15K free per month, 15,000 email relays per month free with Sendgrid, limited to 200 free emails per day while you're a student, right? I'm pretty cool with that myself. I get 25,000 pay as you go, right? So that's a pretty good amount of them. We don't need anywhere near that many, right? But the great thing is we can test our email that way, and we can get on to the next piece. All you need is a Sendgrid account, though. So even if you don't have an account through Azure, you can always go to Sendgrid by itself, right? And like we said, you can sign up. This is what it looks like. So I can log in. If you have your login, if you can, or sign up, log in. And then once you signed up, you can use their account. So let me give you a few minutes. I'm just going to stop recording right now, and I'll give you a chance to get your credentials while I explain what you can do. Actually, I'll keep talking while you do that. How about that? So we don't waste time. All right, so let's assume that you've gone through your little thing. There's 2 ways to do it. Again, you can go through pay-as-you-go with Microsoft. And when you go pay-as-you-go, then you get your free account. And it's integrated into Microsoft Azure, like we saw, right? So if you're a pay-as-you-go user, and again, that would cost you maybe like $5 a month max. Unless you try and run some kind of crazy VM, right? You'd be fine. It wouldn't affect you in any way, right? And you can still choose your DreamSpark. Now, for pay-as-you-go, you need to put in your credit card information, right? So please be careful if you're going to put your credit card information. I trust Microsoft that they're not going to kill my credit card, and even if they do, it can always stop my credit card from working, so it's okay. But they haven't yet. I've been using them as pay-as-you-go for a long time, and my monthly charges are maybe $3 a month, right? Like it's like stupid, like really low, because all I'm doing is web apps for you guys, right? But it gives me the ability to do other things like Sendgrid and other things like SQL Server. If I want to run a SQL Server, that costs a little bit more money. That might cost $10 a month to run a full SQL Server, right? If I want to run something else, okay. So once you set up your Sendgrid account, the next piece is to set up your, you get a password, and you have to set up a password, and you get a server, SMTP Sendgrid.net, as well as a username that you get to in order for you to connect with your with Sendgrid, right? So those are the 2 things you get, some credentials. Okay, and then what we need to do is, with our project, which is right here, I need to add Sendgrid as a provider, right? Now, I'm not going to do it here on my app.js or app.ts. I won't do it here with app.ts. What I'm going to do it inside my routes. So if I look at my routes under my index.ts file, I have here's where I set up my Sendgrid for the first time. So I set up my Sendgrid, and I require 2 things. Here's my username, and here's my password, which is Georgian2016, right? So worst case, if you wanted to check it through my Sendgrid, you could always go up on GitHub, download my project, and use my credentials. Use this as your own, right? Remember, I get like 25,000 emails or whatever for free, or whatever translation it's going to be. I don't recommend it, though. I'd like you to try your own so you know how to set it up. The whole setup process doesn't take that long. So once I've got this object, this Sendgrid object right here, right, then what I can do is down in here, I have an example online about how to send mail. So here's an example. When I go to get my contact form, I render my contact form. I say, hey, here's my my contact and so on. And if I post to my contact form, I press the send button on my contact form, it's going to go back here to do a post. And here's where I'm actually going to set up my Sendgrid. So I'm going to go sendgrid.send, and inside there I'm going to say, here's an example of my mail package that I'm sending. I'm saying send to me, this is my email, from the email that I get from my body, right, the body of my form. my subject, contact form submission, right? That's what they're sending. And then a little message that says, this message has been sent from my contact form at blah, 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 as a text file. And then my message body, this message has been, if it's, there's two, there's text version and the HTML version. And the HTML version is exactly the same as the text version, just with its rich text, right? And then I set up my message body. And then I have an error piece right here, just in case there's a problem. But if I'm successful, if there's no error, then I render my contact page again with a little message, a flash message that I'm using that says, everything is good. Everything is wonderful. How does this work? How does it look when it works? Well, let me show you how it works, right? So I have a working file. Here's my Visual Studio Code. And what I'm going to do, here's my file. I'm going to just run gulp on it. It's going to run. Yeah, let's try that again. Oh, there it is. Just took a second to connect to Mongo. So here I am. I go to my contact page, and here's a contact page I created, right? A little bit bigger contact page. And I do something like this. I say, your name is, I don't know, john@doe.com, right? And that's wrong. Actually, it's called John Doe. Here, what that? John Doe. And john@doe.com is here. John@doe.com. I can tell you I'm sick. That's what I can do. And then 416-555-5555. And here is a little message just for you. Okay, good. I click send. Thank you for your message. Your message has been sent. This little message that I got here is something called the flash message that we're going to be talking about with authentication. Right, this little flash message at the top. It actually, I'm using a module called Connect Flash, which I'm going to be talking about today. Right, Connect Flash. And what Connect Flash does allows me to send little messages on my pages like this if I'm successful or if I fail. All right, so message is good. Thank you very much. I can X out of it. Now, did I receive my mail? Right, that's the thing. The next thing I want to see, because if I don't receive my mail, that's a problem, right? So I'm gonna go check my mail. Actually, it'll probably come in a second through Sendgrid. Sometimes it takes an extra second for it to come. If it's a problem, by the way, on the bottom it would have an error, right? There'd be an error here that would have a problem right here. Where there'd be a problem of me getting an error. The other reason why you want to send emails is if you ever want to do things like send a verification email, right? You ever see those verification emails? Please sign up for your account, free account. Please verify your email. Send an email and then return this little stub here. Go to this page and return. Well, you can't get a verification email unless your app can send an email, right? So this Sendgrid allows you to do that kind of stuff too. And of course, you get like a no reply kind of email attached to this thing, right? So you can do that kind of thing. So I'll wait till that comes in. Sometimes it takes a second or so to propagate through the system. And just to check it out, I go to my Outlook or Hotmail. And sometimes where it's going to go, it probably goes to this first before I do this kind of stuff. J. Bond, Lee Robinson. But no one that I want. Maybe it went to my junk mail. No, it hasn't gone there. It's funny, like when I was testing it before, it was like flying. It was like boom, 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 right? So it could be like just like I'm here at the school, and it is what it is. Doesn't like messages being sent from the school. The good thing is though, I can try this online, right? Like right now I'm doing it local, right? And it's one thing, but remember that anything that I upload here also gets uploaded online to my Mongo, Azure website. So let's check it there. Maybe that's what the problem is. So if I go to Mongo demo, I think it's Mongo demo 2.azurewebsites.net. This is where it is. Hopefully it's not down, because that would be one of the problems that would cause it to have an issue, right? And the other thing I'm going to check is my my Heroku mail, right? Because Heroku is, I got comp, what did I call it? COMP2068 .mongo demo Heroku app. There it is. Remember, both these sites are watching this thing from running. And a lot of times, the stuff that stops me from working things in the school, online, there's no stop. Yeah, see, there's a problem with my application now. And that's what I thought. And I thought there would be some kind of issue that, see, or wouldn't crap out like this, right? Now, I'm not getting an application error here, but sometimes what I get is an application up online. So how do you get rid of these errors up online? Like, how do I fix my Mongo demo by going up and translating? So I'm going to go to Heroku to fix my error because I've generated an error for myself nicely. Okay. Boy, I love errors. And I'm going to go to Mongo demo, and I want to go to. You can see that I have a proc file that I'm using, and so on. And if I go to activity, I can see that I've got my latest deployed. My latest deployment was 41 minutes ago. It says my build succeeded. That's nice, right? Here's my build log, right? So it shows what I've got. It says cache build succeeded. It has all these things that it's loading in. Compression done, and it looks like it's been released. So everything's nice, yeah. And then let's look at my. If I look at my stuff here, I can actually look at some of my log files, right? Which is what I want to kind of do. I want to see if I can see my log files for my app, right? And they're available usually right up here on Heroku. And actually, Heroku is what I used to troubleshoot my app last time, right? Because I want to be able to do that. Oh, I got it. It worked. John Doe came in. Took a little bit of time, mind you, but works for me, right? Yeah, so if I go to deploy, as an example as well, a lot of times what happens is that it'll give you deployment information, for what's happening, right, to my app. If I deploy my branch again, so here's my deployment branch, and if I try and redeploy everything, it'll give me a log of what's going on, right? Now, if it gives me no issues, right, build succeeded, like it's doing right now, then we have to, in the beginning, what we want to try and assume is that everything is working, right? So if I click this view button, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it should come up, right? Because it's deployed, but yet I get an application error. One thing you'd want to try and do, of course, is do one of these. So inspect, and then you're going to go to your console to see what it is, and it says, my fave icon is missing, but that can't be it. I couldn't have broken it because of my fave icon. That doesn't make any sense. So what could have broken my file? I got to figure that out, right? And the way to do that, of course, is right through Heroku. So because I've done something to change that. So again, from a metrics perspective, it tells me the metrics of my site. How did I work? My activity. It shows me I can compare my what I've done from last time to this time. I can certainly do something like this. But really, what I want to look at is my log files. So here's my settings. If I go to my settings, I think it's in here. I have to check out where my log files are, where I can see them. So I always forget. Oh, here it is. View logs. So if I go view logs, I can see what's going on here. So it says this. Here's my file, @module require, right? @module load, state changed from starting to crashed. Why? And this happened right now when I looked at it. It says @error, app crashed, method get path hostname, right? Dyno connect to service, and it says 192.139.153, blah, blah, blah. So this one is the second one, this app icon that's causing an issue. But this is the main one here, right? My dyno connecting to service is having a problem connecting, which is kind of weird because it was working just the other day. Like it says method get / host. Oh, okay. So somewhere in my routing. So let's take a look at my routing and see if I've missed anything in my routing. So I've got my / here, and I got Sendgrid, and I got passport. Oh, let's get rid of this. I got no passport in here yet. Mongoose is there, right? But did I need Mongoose for connecting? Did I have that in there before? I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure I doubt it. So, because I don't use Mongoose for anything in here. So let's get rid of that too. Sometimes too many imports are the cause of the problem. There's what they call cyclic references that occur if you import everything from file to file. All right, so cool. Let me update. I'll say updated index.js. You know, in my route, updated router index.js. And I'll push this change just to see. Now, we should also test it locally, yeah? Because testing it locally would be good. But it looks like it didn't crash right now. Locally, it started. So I think whatever I did looks like it worked. And let's check up online on here to see what my thing is. Now, if you notice, it's a play-by-play up on Heroku. Here's my slug, change from start to crashing, and then warning is a connect, change from starting to starting up. Take a look. You can actually watch it as it deploys, right? Starting to up. So now it looks like it's up. Let's see if I'm right. If my my suspicion was correct. So here it is, right here. Refresh, and if everything goes well, then I'm back up. Right, so I can see my users page and my articles page and all that stuff. So you see what I did? Even if I cause myself a problem, I can always go into my logs and watch it. And if I fix it on Heroku, chances are it's fixed on Azure too, right? Azure's a little bit less finicky in some ways and more finicky in other ways, right? And you can see that I'm up and I'm running properly. These are my logs right here. And this is, you can get the same logs on the command line as well if you like. But I like to watch them live like this sometimes. By the way, it's not just to kill time. I don't just sit there, let's just go watch my Heroku logs, you know, and have a glass of wine. You know, I just don't think that's a fun thing on a Friday night, you know. But when I have a problem with my code, then I want to basically get together and look at it, you know, look what's happening. And there's got to be some feedback that I got to get from my app. Microsoft Azure has the same thing. It's just a little bit more embedded. You have to kind of look for it a little bit more. Let's go back to deploy. So what I've done is I've connected my Azure. Now you guys have been able to get connected to Sendgrid or no?
No, we have to wait a couple of weeks. So we'll come back in a bit. We'll get it.
My tears are crying. Huh?
I was able to get the Sendgrid, but then it has like company name and still, so I don't know what to do.
You don't put any company name.
So I put nothing, and then it says your account is currently being provisioned. You will not be able to send access.
Couple weeks.
So I go. It says learn more. So it says they are making sure that the information that I put. So it doesn't let me not put a company name or anything. So I just put that it's not applicable. So I'm guessing that's why. And because they said that they need to know
Education.
the company behind.
Okay, so the answer is, just for people who are watching online, is you can't get it if you're a DreamSpark student, then you can't get it right away. If you're a pay-as-you-go person, it's instant, right? So if you're a pay-as-you-go person, no problem. Here's the other thing: can you do Sendgrid with Heroku, right? Because we tried it with Azure. Sometimes Marketplace exists for Heroku as well. So how do I figure that out? So if I go back to here to resources, I can see that I have MongoLab as a resource for Heroku. Here's my add-ons. I can find more add-ons. Let's see if on Heroku I have access to such things as Sendgrid. And I'm guaranteeing you that it's going to be something like that up here, right? If not Sendgrid itself. So here's data store utilities, monitoring, logging, email. Oh, let's see how Sendgrid works on Heroku. There it is. So I'm going to click on Sendgrid, log in to install. Zero a month, starting at 0 a month. Why don't you guys try it through here? Yeah. See, the starter is free, and then bronze and silver. There's different levels, right? Now, emails per month is up to 12,000 emails per month. That's pretty good for me. I don't know. How about you? That's pretty good. And I can log in to install. So let's just log in. And I can install Sendgrid right here on thing. And it says, please select which application. So I'm going to install it, of course, on my Mongo demo. Why not? Heroku. Like I told you, some things are easier on Azure, some things are easier in the Heroku world. And then it says, here's my starter. That's what I want. Provision. I'm provisioning Sendgrid just for Heroku right now. Click provision. And it's done. Try that. Lovely people of the world. What do you mean you don't have a Heroku account?
Do you have one? Yeah, I do. I'm actually logging into it right now.
If I want to see what it is, I have to click on Sendgrid itself. Here's Sendgrid. I want to click onto it. And if I look at Sendgrid, and this is just for this project, which is kind of cool, I can look at it and go, here's my request here. Hey, hi, reseller. And it says, here's my email address, app@heroku.com. That doesn't make any sense. Let's send a confirmation email. And of course, we're going to send a confirmation email to me. I didn't receive the email because it's going to the wrong place, app@heroku.com. But I can change my email address to whatever I want, I think. Yeah. So if I go like to me again, if I click send, yay! It's going to send my email to me. And then if I confirm, I should be able to have access. But the great thing is about this, I get my, there it is. I get my settings. Here's my settings, and it tells me things like my username, this is important, and my email address, right? And I can set up my password the same way, right? So I use my API keys. I can create an API key if I want to. I can see my credentials, right? It says you have no credentials. Multiple user credentials. I mean, I could add a new credential up. Permission will give username and password the same level of access as your own account to connect to our SMTP service, to transfer mail, and to use the API call, send email to our system. All right, so I would check this out if I was you guys. I think there's some value in trying this thing out. And I'm sure if you set it up with Heroku, it's going to work with Microsoft too, right? You just have to set it up through this as opposed to the other way. La la la. Confirm email address. Done. So I'm just confirming it here on my little handset. Hey, get started. You guys can't see what I'm doing, but email plans and pricing.
On Heroku, it says item configured. Please verify your account to install add-on. Please enter it.
Right, and it's the same thing if you want to try and do MongoLab. If you do MongoLab with Heroku, you need to add a credit card, but they won't charge your credit card, right? So again, if you have a credit card, you're good to go. That's the other. I mean, I told you, I said it's easier in some ways and worse on the other side. One more option for people who want to try it, you can try pay-as-you-go with Microsoft. It's not, you can have two accounts, two subscription levels. One for the school, and the other one you can choose pay-as-you-go or your DreamSpark as you go. So you can set up with Microsoft as on your account as a pay-as-you-go subscriber, and then get access to Sendgrid like that. It'll happen like in like 5 minutes, just like this, right? So whatever which way you want. I'm not going to force anybody, right? Like if you want to go through the 3-week process, go ahead, right? If you want to wait, you know, I mean, even with, you need a credit card in order for you to do these kind of things. But if you were going to use Heroku for MongoLab, you need a credit card anyway, right? So I think it's a great little backup in order for you to do that. One thing is, once I set up, if I go to settings, like I said, under settings, if I go click on settings, and if I go to account details, here's my username, but I don't have a password, right? What's my password? Well, for Heroku, there's one more thing you have to do here, which is like what I saw earlier, which is set up a, now you can set up multi-factor authentication and all kinds of stuff, and totally cool to set up, but you can set up a new credential, right? So username and password, you set that up right here. And what that ends up doing is they create a credential for you, so you can connect and use your Sendgrid, just like I've outlined. So check it out. It's definitely something that I would recommend if you're gonna, especially when we get into projects, when you start doing your contact form and you want to get the, some free points for your contact form. Because remember I said contact form, if you make it work, it's bonus points, right? So there's no, it's not required, right? So this is one way of getting it going. And I've given you the code. It's up online for you to use. Questions around Sendgrid and what that is? It's an email relay service. By the way, if you were going to make a website on Microsoft, a PHP website, you can make PHP websites too. Or let's say, for example, you used WordPress, right? Because you want to make WordPress and send mail through WordPress. Wouldn't work. Any of your mailer, if you wrote a PHP mailer on Azure, it would say, man, sorry, it's not going to work because it's being blocked by Azure. Hey, who did that? 888 John Doe. Someone set it up. Mongo set email. So does that make any sense? Does it make any sense? So that's the way it works with Sendgrid. Sendgrid is a relay service you can use so that you can make your WordPress work, as well as any PHP mailer. If you run a custom PHP mailer with Azure or something else like that, it'll work, and it works nicely. Like I said, 25,000 relays a month. That's pretty cool, right? Especially when you're doing a small website. It's a cheap and dirty way of doing it. Hey, here's another question. Do you think it's important to set up a no reply email for a website? No reply email. I think it's really important. And I know this is kind of a topic of conversation for us as we're moving towards authentication now, right? But remember that when we do a no reply, like for example, let's say, I'm sorry, Lucy. Lucy logs into my service, right? My site. And she's registering for the first time. So I send you a registration email, verification email, and it goes to your email address, and you respond and you verify yourself. So I sent out an email to you. It's not going to come to you from my info@tom.com. It's going to be at no reply or whatever. And the no reply email address is cool because it's going to hit people. If people try and reply to it, it's just something that I can junk. I can remove. I can just not listen to anything that comes into no reply. That's one really important one. The other one is, how about a junk box? You think a junk box is really, if you're setting up a website for the first time, some kind of email box that all your junk mail go to. You can actually set that up in your email service, right? So email catches all your junk mail, almost like a junk catch-all, that kind of thing. That's really important too. And the reason for it is because, again, you don't want to get hammered with junk mail, right? One more thing. I highly recommend that you do not include any kind of info or email. I know this is probably, you've said this before, but no email physically on your website. So if you actually put an email address like info@tom.com, right? Then some Chinese bot, sorry for the Chinese people in the room, right? Or a bot from India, right? Somewhere. Or from Greece because they're suffering so badly in the economy, right? Someone's going to write a Greek bot.
I got a Greek uncle.
Right.
$6 million.
That's right, right. He's going to send you some, they're going to send you some mail saying, the Greek drachma is coming back, right? And we're going to oust the euro, right? And they're going to send you all these kind of junk mail and stuff like that. It's going to bomb you with mails, right? So please don't expose your email address, whatever you can. Try and avoid exposing any email address on your contact form. It's a bad practice. If anything, even for our contact form, see how you're able to do your contact form really quickly with this? We should include something called Captcha, right? For those people who don't, some kind of instant Captcha so that it's not a bot that kind of fills in the forms for you or some kind of, person that wants to bomb me with mails, right?
Why did you point
I don't know.
Do you feel like I would like it?
It's because you have a guilty face,
I
right?
have a guilty face. Okay, that's fair. I've been told that before.
But in a good way. Right?
Oh, thank you.
It's recognizable guilty. But anyways, I mean that in the most lovable way too, right? It's a sign of affection when I hit people. But the way it works is like this: is when you have this stuff going on, you don't want to be the one that gets bombed by email. So the way to do that is to set up protection on your website, on your contact forms, so that you don't get. It's not easy for them to set up. So Captcha is another thing that I recommend setting up. I know that's kind of really weird. We're talking about it here on a MeanStack course, but Captcha is kind of important. So if I put Captcha, and if I want to Captcha for my Express site, Express.js, right? Then they have a Captcha module with npm that you can include, right? And you could certainly kind of look at some things, like for example, Captcha 2, right? And it gives you some information on how it would work. Now, you know, look, if it's got something like 7 downloads or 40 downloads, this is not the one, all right? For an NPM perspective, you need to have like something a lot more than that, like reCAPTCHA. There might be a reCAPTCHA something in here. There we go, reCAPTCHA verifier, one of those that might have a bit higher. Let's take a look at that. If you don't have like, you know, a few thousand hits, no, that's no good, right? Something that makes sense that of an NPM module that you can add in. So we can look at that later on, but something like that, like an easy CAPTCHA, or and look, also look, it says published 2 years ago. Let's look at easy CAPTCHA for a second. Easy CAPTCHA, right? Now it's got 149 downloads. You know, it was published 2 years ago, but I don't know if it's getting any kind of attention, right? Like that's not one NPM module that I want to download, right? So again, if I was going to look at something, if I want to look it up online for NPM module, I can do something like reCAPTCHA, right? And its number of stars is 3 stars. That's a good indicator right there. And if I look at the number of downloads, there's 4,000 downloads, right? This is kind of the one you want to use, the reCAPTCHA, right? So npm install reCAPTCHA, and it tells you how to set it up in your code, right? So it's not like the modules aren't there for you to incorporate in your code from a comment perspective or whatever. You could also set up things like your public and private key, and you would get that from the reCAPTCHA people, right? And it tells you how to see these instructions to help customizing the look of reCAPTCHA. In brief, you will need to add a structure like this one, and that's how it works. And before you can use this module, you have to visit this to request a public and private API key for your domain. All right, so that's what you'd have to do for that. So that's not a little bad idea. We might go into this a little bit, and how to set up reCAPTCHA for your contact forms, right? Any kind of contact form, any form at all, any form submission, even things like you login and registration. If you got to think about it, and you might want to think about using something like reCAPTCHA to stop people from just logging in like random people, right? It kind of verifies who they are and that they're not a bot, right? They're not a bot from Greece that's going to sell you like, you know, an island in the Mediterranean, right? Okay, what was that?
I would buy an island like that.
Yeah, sure. There's thousands of them out there. I can sell you one.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know a guy?
Yeah, sure.
$5,000.
That's right.
Okay.
And you know what? It's very cheap. I'm joking, but you know, you'll never see the sun there. I'll tell you right now. It's just won't happen. You'd probably be sold somewhere out there if you ever went to Greece. Like they'd probably take you and sell you to the Turks. Anyway, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Like I would go to look at my island and they'd sell me.
Yeah, they say, "Who are you?" Or "You're that guy from yeah, come right this way. The boat's right there. We'll take you to the island. You'll never see the island." Right? I'm joking. I'm joking. It's just these are just like, you know, spy things. You know, we're talking about that doesn't really they don't really exist.
You just made me lose all trust in humanity.
No, you should have already lost trust in humanity a long time ago. Anyways, let's. I'm digressing here. You're really catching me at a sick point in my life, right? So it's a bad thing. All right. We want to talk about authentication today. Austin, you kill me. Right? I think I might just pass you just for the comic part of it, right? Go on. So what I want to do here is I want to talk authentication, and the authentication piece we want to use is who's ever got get Sendgrid done, like actually installed? Someone follow it a lot? Anybody? Put up your hand, somebody. Okay, that's good.
Give me 3 weeks.
I don't know how to connect it actually to that.
Okay, I'm going to show you. All right, it's not so difficult to do. All right.
Just for their class.
So once we've got our app, what we want to do is we want to set up a way of locking down our stuff. Last week we did a little thing where we did a user account stuff, where we kind of set up user accounts. We did a little lab for those people who finished the lab, right? Last week, little user account lab. And we want to use those user accounts, right, that we create in order for us to create something more detailed, right? Now, I've modified the code a little bit from what we saw last week. Let's take a look at what my user accounts look like now. So I'm going to go into my models. I'm going to go to my user model, and I have my user models a little bit bigger than I saw before, right? I don't know why I did this. Use bcrypt. Let's get rid of this. Arg. Let's get rid of this thing too. Mongoose schema. There we go. Oh. Yeah. So what I meant to do was do this. So I have a username and password, but I want to add more detail to my user's schema right now. So I want to go username, password, right? Email, a display name, a date created and a date updated, right? A bunch of different things here that I want from my user schema to do, right? So more complex user schema than I had before, but only slightly more. All right, everything else remaining the same. I need to modify my ad page, on my EJS pages, right? I need to modify my ad page so that way when I add my user, it also asks me for my email and my display name. Those two things there as well. So let's do that first. So I'm going to go back to my EJS page. Under my users, I've got my ad. And notice that right now I only have my username and password, right? Username and password. And I need to add a couple more field sets or no more input items here for my other stuff. And I'm going to take this first one here. And I'm going to add a little bit more things. So one of them is going to be here. This next one I'm going to add in is going to be called email. Here's my email. So I'm just modifying my EJS forms here. And then I'm preparing again for authentication. I'm breaking this down slowly over time. My type is email as well, so I get the email keyboard, right? So that's that one done. One more. I also need a display name, because sometimes I need my username, but I also want a display name, like how a regular friendly name for me to to be called. Like for example, Darth Braku or something weird. I don't know, because I just want to be weird. No, I swear.
Darth Braku.
No, I swear, it's not true.
That was not random.
Right? It's right. It was totally random. What are you talking about, right? Come on. Right?
That's your gamer name.
No, it's not. But anyway, it's not there. It's not there. I swear. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, so let's just say it's that, right? So username, password, email, and this one would be something like instead of email, it would be display name. So display name. Right, here's my, this would be a text, and my name would be display name. These are I'm just modifying my form so it gives me the right information. And this would be display name as well. So all these things would be required, right? Okay, cool. And if I look at my form now, it'll be changed. But if I modify this part, I need to modify the other ones too, right? Like for example, my edit form. My edit form can't be like this. My edit form has to be almost like my ad form, right? So here's my password, here's my field set, and I'm going to add in a couple of other things here. Let me just grab this up. I'm just working on my edit form right now. By the way, I'll upload to GitHub in a second. So here's my next one, which is going to be my email. I want to modify my email. I want to be able to modify all my stuff here, right? So here's my email. And then if I modify this stuff, I also got to modify my routing. User.email. That's important to do. And I might as well add in my display name because I want to make my user information a little bit more detailed. And email, this one will be display name. All right, I'll show you this stuff in a second, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me a second. All right, so I've got both of my forms here. I've got my here's my edit.ejs. So it's a little bit more complex. I have username, password, email, and display name, and these match my model, right? Because I've expanded my model to include email and display name, not just username and password. All right, cool. And the other thing is here's my index.ejs. Oh, sorry. Add.ejs. My add.ejs does same thing. Username, password, email, display name. Cool. But remember, in order for these to work, right, I need to have my users' routes work as well. So here's my user route. And if I go here, I display my name, blah, blah, blah. Notice that I pass in my user's data, so I can display all in my regular, right? If I press my add button though, I can't just do create username and password. I got to create everything else. Let's put those in. So password, so username, password, and then the other one is email, which is rec is request, request.body.email, right? And then display name is request.body.displayName. So these are the things that I'm creating. Every time I create a new user now, it's going to be with all this stuff, more complex, right? Okay, now, so this is when I add. How about when I edit? So here's my post, whatever. I got my delete. I delete my guy, no problem. Deleting is okay. But here's when I edit my ID. So here's when I get my ID. I show my stuff, and I show my user information. So when I actually edit him, I get my details. This doesn't have to change. This edit piece, or my get. But my post has to change because my post I have to add in additional details. So here's my new user, and I got to do the same thing. So I'm going to say password, email, request.body.email. Oh, not meal, email. And then, then it's going to be display name, which is request, .body.displayName. Okay? And this, I'm missing a comma here. That's all. All right, so cool. These are cool. But what about, this is for a new user when I'm reposting. But what about if I repost the user information, my created is overwritten. I've kind of had a created and an updated. I'll leave those the same for now. But eventually, what I want to do is I don't want to just add a new user. I want to change I want to keep my created and change my updated to the new one, right? So I have my created date and my updated date based on what the time is now, right? So I want to change those things up. For now, let's leave it as is. Those are a topic of the future, right? So I've got these things in. I saved everything, and it looks like I'm transpiling, and it starts Mongo Lab. Don't worry about these errors here. This is all for gulp. By the way, I've checked it. That's the only gulp error that I have. If, by the way, you want to see your errors, and if you want to set up your tasks to run locally, you can do that. And instead of your show output being none or hidden, silent, I put it as always. So if I want to transpile locally, I can do something like this, Command-Shift-B, Control-Shift-B. And what I get is I can get a little bit of an output when I'm done transpiling here if there's a problem. Okay? All right, so I'm done. I've got everything. I've got a bunch of updates, and I'm going to say updated user, add, and edit EJS pages. And press this checkbox, go here, and put push. Again, I'm just trying to get you guys used to doing this kind of stuff, so that way you understand what it is to make a user authentication model. Okay. Let's check to see if somehow we broke Heroku now, right? So I'm going to go to users, and if your users works, and let's see, first of all, did I deploy first of all on Heroku? It looks like it worked, but let's just make sure. Here's my activity, and it should say like less than a minute ago, and we're good, we're deployed. So it looks like it's working. I want to add a new user now. Let's click and see. Hopefully I get my new EJS files, right? Yay, username, password, email, display name. Okay, let's check this out. So if I get all these ones, so here's my username. So again, now this can be what I want, right? So just for you, right? Because you're asking. So it's like, my Darth Brackut, right? And then my password is 12345, and my email address, is Darth Brackut at starwars.com or whatever. There we go. And my display name is Darth Brackut, right? Who knows? I'm just making it up. Okay, there's Darth Brackut. 12345 is my password. And oh man, I forgot to change this display area here for my users. I'm also displaying my password, but my password is displaying as a clear text password, right? I want to see my other information. I see my creation date, Thursday, March 17th. By the way, happy St. Patty's Day. But If you're not wearing green, then that means you're Greek, right? And you're you're worried about other things, right? Or something wrong with you, right? Because you should be drinking at a pub somewhere instead of being sick like me. Let's go to the next thing. I need to change this users thing because I'm not seeing what I'm seeing here properly. So let's go back to here for a second, and I'm going to just go into my my EJS file. Hey, notice something different with my Visual Studio Code. If I click on my users, and if I go to index.ejs, look what it says on the bottom here. EJS. Doesn't say like text, right? How did I get that? I added in an extension for Visual Studio Code. There's an EJS extension out for Visual Studio Code that colors your text the way you like it. So just FYI. Okay, so notice that when I list my users, I have my username and password, right? Username, password, and then it has other information here. It's not very nice looking, right? So it's like my username here and password like this, whatever, and then it's got my creation date, whatever. And I probably want to have some other information like my updated, right? Created and updated. I have those two things. I also have my display name and my email. So let's get those things in here as well. So we're going to add a couple more break tags in here. So I'm going to kind of do one of those and another one of these. And one of them is going to be email. So users.email and users.displayname. And I have my created date, but I also have an updated date. So let's just put this whole thing in here and go in here like this. This should show you what the difference is. And it's updated, right? Because this is all part of my new user model that I made, right? Okay, cool. I made a change. And now that I made a change, all these things got updated, right? So I'll say updated my user index.ejs. And I add that in, go here, and push it up to Heroku and to Azure. And when it's done, one day, I'm going to go back up. So this is kind of a review for what we did last week. We just kind of created a user model, and all I'm doing is updating it so it's a little bit more complex than what it was before, right? All right, if everything went well, then if I refresh the screen, it should give me more information than I'm currently seeing, right? Because all I'm seeing is these two things. And I should see something more, yeah, like this. Make sense? Look, here's my username, my password, my email address, and my display name, plus my created and updated date. Okay? You guys okay with this stuff, or are you getting errors? Anyone getting errors with what I'm doing? I want you guys to be familiar with your user model and how you can modify my EJS pages ahead of time, right? Hey, this is interesting, but it doesn't have any information in here. It just has like stuff, right? So I want to be able to kind of look at all this stuff, right, and then have some kind of headers like username, password, blah 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 blah. I didn't put that in there, so let's change that now. So go back to here and let's add some information. So we're going to say username, right? But this is inside of an A tag, which I don't want to use, right? So I'm going to kind of just put it on top. I'm just going to say username. Right? A little bit of a space there. And then underneath that, I want to put my other stuff. So this is going to be password, right? And email. A little more descriptive stuff, right? Of course, display name. So display name. And then create date, created, and updated. Should be the same right now. And save. And once I save that, everything else gets saved, and I'm going to get a pile more stuff, and I'll say I updated my EJS files one more time. So index.ejs, I put that up there, and I'm going to say something like updated users index .ejs. Added descriptions. List descriptions. List descriptions. Here in my Mongo demo, I should see not only just this stuff, but also my username, password, blah, blah, blah. Let's see how that looks. Not yet. It's still rolling. There you are. That's a little better, right? So you can see what they all are. So now this is neat because it gives us almost like a user detail right here. If I click on my name here, right, it allows me to change stuff, right? So let's say, for example, it's not Darth Braku, but Darth Braku 2016, because sometimes we get weird usernames. And submit. Well, here's what happens. I got my created date and my updated date. You can't see the minutes and seconds, right? But they're going to be identical. Let's take a look at what it looks like on Mongo, right? Remember that I'm using Heroku Mongo Lab here. So if I go up on Heroku, and if I look at my Mongo Lab for this project, right? So I click on Mongo Lab. When it logs me in Mongo Lab, I'll be able to look at what my account collection looks like, or my user info collection. All right, so I got one user, right? Here's my user info. And if you notice how it's stored, it looks very interesting to me. Take a look. So here's my ID. Here's updated. Here's my date for updated. Here's my date for created. Notice the difference? No, because I create new objects every time I update, right? Here's my display name, right? And here's my username, which just got updated, my password, and my email. So that's how it looks like. So that's the state of affairs when it comes to my the stuff that I've got up online. Any questions around what I'm doing here? All I'm doing is I'm just resetting some of my user settings to prepare for more complex login, username and password, that kind of thing, right? If I don't have this thing created this way, then what's going to happen is, and by the way, I haven't hashed anything. Like I haven't created any kind of encryption for my username and password. Like I should be able to, when I create my password for the first time, it should be fire and forget, right? The system should never be able to give you back your password. They should only be able to give you a hash of your password based on salt and pepper, right? Who knows what salt and pepper is?
It was a band in the 80s.
It was, right? But that's not what we're talking about.
Oh, you mean the password, like
Salting, yeah, salting. So basically what happens is, for a little bit of application security programming that we're going to be talking about is like this, right? When you make your application, you're going to create a hash, or you're going to encrypt your password. And you know what? Hell, you might as well encrypt your username too, right? So no one can see your username and password in a database like Mongo Lab, right? They would just see two encrypted chunks of data. You don't know what they are. You don't know which one's username, you don't know which one's password, you know nothing, right? And when I log in, I'm going to check my hash, my username, whatever I put in there. It's going to rehash my username and check against the hash that's inside the system. So even if you call up today, if you call, let's say you have a Rogers account, right? And you want to reset your password. Or let's say, for example, you have a Hotmail account, right? Or Gmail, and you want to reset your password. But you call them up and say, listen, can you tell me what my password is? Because I can't forget it. I forgot about it. They'll say, no, we can't. They used to be able to do that, by the way, because there was clear text passwords back in the day, right? Believe it or not. Not so anymore. They could never tell you your password anymore. They would just send you to a reset page. So they don't even know what your password is, because for them, if I was to read this in the system, I would just see an encrypted hash, right? Which is not your password, right? So that's the way we protect passwords these days. It's an encryption. It's a big block of encrypted text. And what it does, the system, when you put your password in there, it takes your password, rehashes it, and compares it with what's in the system. And if it's the same, you've logged in. You got successfully logged in, username and password. If it's different, it's going to kick you out and saying, sorry, it's incorrect, right? And that's the simple way of authenticating. But how do we authenticate with Mongoose and Node.js and everything else? So here's what I want you guys to do for this first step of authentication. We need to download some files. What we're going to be using is something called passport.js. So let's go to passport.js. Here it is. This is passportjs.org, and it gives you very simple ways of authenticating. Actually, what they have is more than 300 strategies on how to authenticate. Okay, let me talk about what strategies are for Passport. Authentication is a little bit of a complex issue for us, right? Because you have to do things like hash your password, serialize, deserialize users. We have to create sessions, and inside sessions we have to store our passwords so we can know if we're logged in or not, right? We don't want to go from one screen to the other and then the screens don't know that we're logged in. That would be bad, right? When we're logged in, right? So one of the things that it allows us to do is we can log in. They have different strategies. Let's take a look at some of these strategies. If I want to log in through Facebook, they have a Passport Facebook strategy, right? So I can create a way for my users to log in through Facebook or Google or GitHub or whatever, right? Without the user actually putting in their username and password in my system. So they don't have to do a local authentication. They just do a GitHub authentication or a Facebook authentication. And this thing is called something, it's usually called OAuth. They use kind of an OAuth strategy to log in, right? So different authentication strategy. Some people think it's a little bit more secure because, let's face it, I mean, if you and I are writing our own security policy, right, we're reinventing the wheel, right? If I use my own way of doing stuff. Is my way going to be very secure? What about the people that are testing? There's a whole community of people testing and providing solutions on a monthly basis to create secure code, right? I think that's probably a little bit safer than what I would do if I made it from scratch, unless I'm like a super hacker, right? And I live in Greece, right? And I want to protect, like, you know, those fake islands that I'm selling, right? And maybe then if that's all I do, that's my whole life is around security and hacking. Maybe then, or if you're watching who watches Mr. Robot? That's a crazy show, eh? So if you watch that show, that's all about hacking and security and all that kind of stuff, right? And how really insecure we are. But you know, but the great thing about this is if that's your whole life and you're a security specialist, yeah, you could probably write your code from scratch and you're good. But for the most part, for all of us, we want to use stuff, security. We want to understand it to keep our website secure. But we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to use something like Passport to write stuff. And this Passport is a very common module that we use to log in and everything else. So one thing we want to use, if let's say, for example, I want a GitHub strategy, there's Passport GitHub, right? So I can use GitHub to log me in because, you know what? GitHub is more secure than my little rinky-dink site, right? So if you log in with GitHub, and if GitHub trusts you, chances are I'm going to trust you. That's how it works. So that's why it allows you to log in. Log in with Facebook, log in with GitHub, log in with Google+, log in with, you see these things all the time because it's a good strategy, right? So these things are called strategies. Now, if you still want to log in on your own username and password, there's something called a local strategy that we can use to log in. So you can have a local strategy for Passport authentication, and you can have other strategies, Facebook, GitHub, whatever. Those are other strategies. Like, for example, this Passport GitHub strategy to log in. And again, like I said, they kind of boast that they have 300 strategies or whatever, different ways of logging in. Documentation. Let's take a look at this for a second. All right, so how do I set this up? Well, I want to do something like this. Inside my router, right, I want to do two things. I want to kind of do something like this. If I'm authenticated and I'm using my local strategy to authenticate, right, so I have to set up my authentication, but if I access my local strategy, on success, if I'm able to log in properly, go to where I'm supposed to go. On failure, redirect to my login page. That's what it's going to be like, okay? So success and failure. Here's how we install. npm install Passport. Go ahead and do this now. Minus save, please. Now remember, we're going to use our Express middleware to connect with it, right? And we're going to use this authenticate function signature right within the middleware to do everything. Take a look what we can do. So when we connect, we have our login page, right? And we're going to do something like this: passport.authenticate local. That's local strategy, right? And we're going to say something like this. Our anonymous function, request response, and if we log in, if this function gets called, authentication was successful, right? Because we did local authentication, right? And then we can log in. Kind if it's not called, right, then kick them out, redirect them somewhere else. Okay? Here's how you do redirects. So they've kind of talked about how to do redirects. So authenticate local, like where we have this authenticate local. Inside there, you can put on success, go to here, on failure, go to here. Okay, that's how it does that. And you can also do things with flash messages. And flash messages, we use connect flash, right? Connect flash is another module. So connect-flash, please download that one. So npm install connect-flash --save. It's not here, but I'll put it up for a second. These are all like a million modules you need, right? So connect-flash. Okay, so connect flash. Another little module we use. So npm install connect flash. And what you do with connect flash is when you set it up so it sends up that little flash message that says, thank you very much for registering or whatever, or registration failed. Or please try and register with this password or username combination has already been taken. Right? Please try again. So connect flash. So we use flash messages so we can say a failure flash is true, right? And then when we set our failure flash to true, we can check to see if that's true, and then we can kind of produce a message, right? So that's kind of what it looks like in a nutshell. It's pretty straightforward stuff. They have some really cool things that are put in here, right? Passports. Here's disable sessions. So we start off with we use sessions to make sure that we're going to go from page to page, and we know that we're logged in, right? It says, after successful authentication, Passport will establish persistent login sessions. This is useful for the common scenario of users accessing a web application via the browser. But however, in some cases, session support is not necessary. For example, if you want to, API servers typically require credentials to be supplied with each request. That's crazy. So you might as well not have sessions, and you can turn sessions off, right? You can make a custom callback, and they give you several examples here. So it's very well documented on how to do this strategy stuff. Here's a really good example of how to set up Passport and our local strategy. Take a look. So here's Passport, and here's my local strategy. This is for us logging in locally, right? And what I want to do is I want to say passport.use. This could be in a local strategy file. Sorry, a Passport config file, right? What I want to use here is a function, an anonymous function that says, hey, find one user, right? And if I'm logged in, this is the login strategy. So if I want to log in, right? Find the user. Here's my username as an example. If error, return error. If not the user, incorrect username, right? If not the password, valid password, then incorrect password. And then again, if you notice that user.validPassword, right? And that would be a new function we'd have to set up. So this is kind of showing you the documentation that's online here that allows us to do this. Now you can see how this is quite extensive. Like for us to set up authentication, here's something we also need. We need to be able to serialize, deserialize users. Who knows what serialize, deserialize is? Anyone do any kind of security at all? Yeah.
So like,
let's see if you remember.
Only like PHP, like rips part of the data and like puts it in a string. I don't know.
No. What it does is actually it does the session. Think about it as it does this. It says, hey, take my user and add him into the session key, right? Session cookie, if you will, right? And then we say this. We say, okay, I see the user in the session. He's logged in, right? So if I go to the next page, I check the session. Is he there? If the user exists in my session, we're golden. I don't have to get him to log in again. If he's not there, right? Then I gotta redirect him to log in, right? So I can serialize a user when I add him into the session, and deserialize a user when I remove him from the session when I log out. Serialize the serializer. Okay. Username and password. So this is the next piece. Download npm install Passport local. This is our common strategy that we use. So Passport local is the local strategy. So npm install Passport local minus save, please. If you haven't done that already. We're just prepping. These are all the requirements, right? And I'm talking about this so you see all this stuff. Not yet. I'm just talking about how to do this. Was there Lab 6 up online yet? No. Thank God.
I was just wondering if
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Right. So here's our passport, and so first we require passport. This is the main module, and then what we want to do is we want to use this local strategy is equal to require passport local. Notice that it uses strategy at the end. If you try this, by the way, with using TypeScript, it'll go, meh, I don't know what strategy is. The strategy doesn't belong to require, right? Doesn't understand that. But what you could do is you could break this down into two bits. Passport local is equal to require passport local, and then local strategy is equal to passport local.strategy. Would work, right? Which makes sense. So if you wanted to pull that off. So here's where we're going to use it. Passport.use new local strategy, right? And then you're going to say something like this: function user find one, then is incorrect username and password, and so on. And you can set all this up just like this in your callback. It talks about how to make a form, right? For logging in. Here's your login form. And your form action is login, which would post of the type of post that would go back to your routing, right? And in your post, you do something like this: passport.authenticate local strategy, right? Success redirect here, failure redirect there, right? If you're logging in. And it also has, I'm sure they do things like registration, but we're not going to get there today on this thing. So it's kind of really cool. They have some pretty good documentation here on the basics of how to use authentication. And they also have different information about strategies. So for example, if I have my Git strategy, so if I put GitHub, right? And if I want to look at details for GitHub authentication, then they give you specific ways of doing things. You have to go things like npm install passport GitHub 2, and then they give you some short code on how to make it work. Notice how you have a client ID and a client secret. You get these right from GitHub. You have to log in and get API keys, and it only works for a particular website. So you can't just create a key and it can work every website. It has to be, it's website specific. So if you're going to make a Heroku website, then it would work just for that website, for that instance. All right, just FYI. So it's quite involved to make a talk about this authentication strategy, right? For the most part, most of us, what we do, passport local, right? We make a local username, password, we log in. We have access to secure areas, we log out, right? Let's take a short break, and when we come back, I'm going to give you a little exercise to do, right? And when we actually use something else, there's one more module I want you to get to try this out, and we're going to try a little micro example of this, right? So I'm going to give you the way to do this. And the last one I want you to do is passport.local-mongoose. And the reason why I want you to get there, here's the example too. Passport-local.mongoose. There's this passport local mongoose module, and what it does is it really cuts down on the amount of code we use to create a local strategy, right? Because we're using Mongoose, right? Which already has some built-in security features, right? So here's all the ones you need that we've talked about: passport, passport local, mongoose, and of course mongoose itself, which we should already have because you're accessing stuff. All right, and it talks about how to set up your modules, and there's a really great little your guide to how to do this thing that we're going to access when we come back from break. So take a short break, 5-10 minutes. When we come back, we're going to have a little let's set this up exercise that I'm going to pull up on the board, and we're going to just walk through it together. Okay?